What is up, Dallas Cowboys fans? Welcome into a Friday edition of the Dallas Cowboys Daily Blitz. It is Friday. We've made it, kinda. We've at least made it to Friday. We've got maybe a good 10 hours or so until the Friday's officially over for some at 5 p.m. Central Time, depending on where you live. I know we got people all over the world listening to this thing. East Coast, West Coast, Hawaii, Alaska, Dubai. I had a comment from a dude from Dubai that appreciated our Cowboys coverage, but we've made it to kind of the weekend. Let's just make it through a few more hours and we can kick off the weekend. Thought today we would spend some time talking about a dude who entered the offseason as an absolute punchline and might leave the offseason with a place on the roster. Of course, I'm talking about Jonathan Mingo. Look, when the Cowboys traded a fourth-round pick to Carolina for him during the 2024 season, we all scratched our heads. We were still sort of scratching our heads all through that year. He caught 5 passes for 46 yards across 8 games under Mike McCarthy. Last year under Brian Schottenheimer, 1 catch, 25 yards, and I think we were all sort of laughing off that fourth-round pick trade. And those numbers and his usage certainly put him on the roster bubble heading into this offseason. But since training camp began, dude's kind of put himself in a position to make the team. And this is not a team that's desperate for wide receivers either. So he's showing something. He said over out in Oxnard that he's just been focused on stacking positive days. He said he feels healthy this training camp. Now, I don't know if that brings into question his health the last couple of years. We weren't certainly privy to any serious injuries or anything, or nagging injuries that would have limited his usage. But I thought it was interesting that he mentioned that he's been feeling healthy this camp, and he said he was trying to take advantage of that. He said he's just trying to be patient. Stack good days with good days with good days, and just be patient and take what he earns. And that patient approach kind of might be what's beginning to produce results for him. Against the Seahawks, he had a solid performance, 2 catches, 20 yards. And then kind of came the moment that made Cowboys fans sort of stand up and take notice when against the Cardinals, Milton found him in stride, a beautiful pass in stride for a 53-yard touchdown. And get this, if you didn't know, it was Mingo's first career NFL touchdown, preseason or regular season, at any point. So, look, I know 1 preseason touchdown does not erase 2 very lackluster, difficult seasons, and it doesn't automatically guarantee him a roster spot. But I think that he showed the Cowboys something they've been waiting to see, and that's that he could potentially become a legitimate weapon when given an opportunity. After the game, his comments emphasized his patience. Of course, he said that it felt good about the touchdown. He said he's got to stay patient. He kept reiterating the word patient. He said everybody's role's not the same here on the roster on this team, and he said, I just want to stay patient and show the coaches I can be a reliable target. And you know what, Jonathan Mingo? So far, so good. The problem is the roster math, and it gets a little complicated because Dallas will most likely only carry 5 wide receivers. Is there a potential for them to carry 6? Yes, but I don't think they will. So that means that 5th roster spot could be between Mingo and the tantalizing Camden Brown. And if the Cowboys decide there's not room for both guys, of course they'll release one or potentially explore the trade market for one of them. Which raises an interesting question. Has Mingo played well enough? Have teams seen enough of him this offseason to offer something for him? Especially knowing that he could potentially be cut and they could get him for maybe nothing. That's always a sketchy proposition for teams. when come roster cut time and everything. But it would be a weird ending to his Cowboys story to get traded away. Dallas, of course, gave up that 4th-round pick to get him. They waited through very limited production, and now that we're seeing a maybe the best version of him, they would consider to move him somewhere else. It would be a weird story, but there are weirder stories in the NFL for sure. Now, Mingo does potentially have another path to the roster, and it doesn't necessarily depend on catching passes, because Brian Schottenheimer made it very clear that special teams could help determine the final roster spots. And Mingo knows that, and he has also been active on special teams this preseason, and he's already produced one of the most important effort plays of this preseason. If you'll remember against Seattle, that Seattle return that began at the Seahawks 15-yard line, got to the Dallas 35. Mingo chased down the returner and made the tackle. Of course, Dallas doesn't want to surrender those kind of returns, especially during the preseason, but Mingo's pursuit and his effort on the play certainly showed coaches some determination, right, that could separate him from other guys that are battling for a special teams roster. And Mingo knows that too. He has commented before special teams might be an avenue to make an NFL roster. So he goes out there and he makes those plays whenever he can. And that might be the most important thing he has said all summer. The 5th receiver isn't usually on the roster because he can make spectacular catches. He sort of earns the job by proving he can contribute on offense, that he can cover kicks, that he can block, that he can tackle, that he can just be reliable when they call his number. And so Mingo this offseason, this preseason, has finally sort of built that resume, I think. That 4th-round pick that Dallas surrendered is gone. Cowboys can't allow that investment to influence their decision, I don't think. This has to be about Mingo, and it has to be about the guy that they have right now and what he could potentially contribute in 2026. And based on what we've seen this preseason, I think he's given the coaching staff an absolutely real decision that they've got to make. So, Cowboys fans, it is your turn. You guys let me know what you think about Jonathan Mingo. Has he done enough to make the 53-man roster if there's only 5 wideouts? Has he done enough to beat out Camden Brown? Would you keep him, or would you keep Camden Brown? Or should Dallas attempt to trade him while his trade value is most certainly the highest it's probably ever been? And I still don't know that the Cowboys could get that 4th-round pick back, by the way. I don't think there's any way somebody would give a 4th-rounder for him, but you never know. Drop your answer in the live chat here and let me know, or reach out to us on the FanStream Sports Studio text line 214-937-0569. Or find me on social medias at IndyCarTim. That's going to do it for our Friday edition of the Dallas Cowboys Daily Blitz Live. If you enjoyed the show, hit that like button, subscribe, turn on notifications so you never miss an update here on FanStream Sports. Again, you guys have an absolutely amazing weekend. We'll be back on Monday. I'm not sure if Monday is 7 or 9. I might still have one day. We haven't clarified yet if I'm still doing the Tampa show Monday or if I'm not, because it's the final day of the month, but it's also the first day of the week. So I don't really know how. We haven't decided yet. So just look out on social media. We'll throw it out there over the weekend when I figure that out. But either way, starting Tuesday, we will be at 9 o'clock Central Time live the rest of the way. And I can't wait to see you guys next week. Until then, we'll see ya.